Afternoon, all. Welcome to another episode of Pyramid Podcast with myself, Murph, Tomo, and Loro. Going to have a review of the football so far this week. Start with the European Super Cup yesterday. City winning another trophy and Haaland, but Ballon d'Or his or Messi's. The Lionesses are through to a World Cup final, one step further than the men's team have been able to go to. So, little review of their performance yesterday. Roundup of any action from Tuesday, and then touch on Monday Night Football, where Man United got off to a laboured start against a spirited Wolves side. We'll then look ahead to the weekend's fixtures, key Premier League fixtures, and sprinkle in some FPL chat. Boys, good to see you. Tomo, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, good week. United got away with one. I think we can all agree on Monday. But 3 points in the bag. You move on. You move on to I think Saturday 5:30 against Tottenham. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Good stuff, Loro.
Yeah, another 3 points for Yeovil on Tuesday, and my mood's very much dependent on that at the moment. So yeah, I'm happy to until at least Saturday. And obviously we've got the Lionesses that won as well, so well done to them.
Yeah, indeed. We'll touch on that. Yeah, good to see you over winning. I'm managing to get to a few games myself at the minute, so we'll have a chat about them later. Boys, I must admit, I had footy last night, so I didn't actually get to see the European Super Cup. But Tomo, City, Seville, what was the game like? Any highlights?
Actually, it's quite impressed with Sevilla. Actually, obviously, like most City games, City had a lot of the ball, couple of good chances. That and Naziri seems like he always pops up with a good goal. He's a bit of a demon in the air. His goal was he towered over the City defense and scored a pretty good header. The cross was from Acuna, who has been linked with a move to Aston Villa, so that's one to look out for. But yeah, City, they won on penalties. Haaland was a fourth trophy in the last 3 months. Haaland gets his hand on the fourth trophy. Be interesting to see whether or not he gets the Ballon d'Or. We probably all agree that Messi will get it just for the fact that he won the World Cup. But Haaland's won 4 trophies. The records and the numbers he was putting up last season was insane. Any other sort of year, you'd think he would get it, but Messi's World Cup was just, I guess, it was Messi's World Cup. So
I thought the Ballon d'Or was calendar year.
no,
am I wrong then?
I think they've changed it to single
August
season.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, so I think they've changed it single season, but yeah, it will be Messi, won't it? Because obviously, sort of 34-year-old leading his country to the World Cup, the one that was slipping him by. So the storyline sort of wrote themselves, and actually an interesting sort of caveat to the whole Haaland deserves the Ballon d'Or. I mean, he's played 5 finals if you include the Community Shield in that, and he scored 0 goals.
I was gonna say that I know you got to take Twitter with a pinch of salt, but I saw something about like Erling Haaland flopped in another final. Like we need to start talking about this or whatever. So yeah, I was just going to ask how he actually played within himself, just like a quiet game.
Yeah, just the thing is though, if he let's be honest, he's not like a striker who completely dominates games or like with his sort of link up play and stuff like that. He's obviously got a specific role at City where he doesn't sort of get much involved in the build up, and quite often he'll just like pop up 1 or 2 goals, 3 or 4 goals, and then you think, wow, he's had a brilliant game. But that obviously that's his job. Last night, along with the Community Shield, it was quiet. Didn't do much, but City win the trophy, so does he really give a fuck? Probably not.
No, I doubt it. Boys, what's your thoughts on the European Super Cup as a trophy? Obviously, Champions League winner versus Europa League winner. What are celebrations like after, like a City like jubilant? Like so, like again, I didn't watch it. Like when they win the penalty shootout, is it like an international penalty shootout where like everyone's mobbing the keeper and it's like
it's a 7 out of 10.
Okay, so it's like if you got Community Shield bar when Arsenal win it at one end, or like second round of the Carabao Cup at one end and then World Cup final at the other, we're talking like 7 out of 10, right?
Yeah. So I mean, Laura, I don't know if you agree with this, but like, let's be honest, right? If you get to the UEFA Super Cup, it's because you've won the Champions League or you've won the Europa League. And as a professional, you rarely win those trophies. So actually playing in a UEFA Super Cup must be a privilege. So I've never really understood the whole, it's only a glorified friendly sort of stance we have in England about those games. Grealish said in the aftermath in his interview with TNT Sports, he basically said that Pep Guardiola drilled that sort of point into him and said, look, you rarely play these games. Man City have never, ever won a UEFA Super Cup because they've never won a European trophy. So, like, I think it's important, and obviously it's great for morale. You carry, like, just a similar aspect of Arsenal winning a Community Shield. It's good for morale. So yeah, but Laura, what do you think?
The complete opposite. I see it as like the Community Shield.
So a glorified friendly.
Yeah. I mean, I just like not to overthink it. Like I wasn't interested in the Super Cup at all last night. Like I know obviously you get there if you win the Champions League or the UEFA Cup, but or the Europa League, sorry, but that no, they're the important trophies to win, aren't they? And if Pep's having to motivate his side by telling them, look, you don't play in this kind of competition every day, then that tells you something in itself, because he wouldn't need to say that in the Champions League final or anything like that. So on par with the Community Shield, obviously a bit above that, but not by much for me.
Yeah, I mean the Community Shield's even at the stage now, right, where if you just get into it for being second place because City win the FA Cup and League, so that is like Arsenal shouldn't even be there level friendly. Right, boys, we'll move on from that then on to another bit of success. So Lionesses through to the final of the World Cup. I must admit, I've watched bits and pieces of it, and then it probably similar to a lot as the tournament's gone on, got a bit more invested in it. But I did actually have it on yesterday. Was impressed with the standard of the goals in the game were brilliant. But I was impressed all round. Did you boys get to watch it, Laura?
Yeah, I did. And I've watched a couple of the games. I watched the Nigeria game as well. I'm really, really impressed with that team. I think the biggest noticeable thing about them is that they've just got that winning mentality and winning edge. And I think it's even more obvious because it's what we've lacked so much in the men's team for the last 20, 30 years since we've been watching. When they go a goal behind, they don't panic. When they had a woman sent off against Nigeria and it went to penalties, you felt they'd win. When Australia equalised yesterday, they went and scored a second and a third. And do you know what I mean? You just feel like they're going to win the games, and that's such a good trait to have in the international team, and not something easy to do. And not saying they've overcome adversity, but they've got key players out as well. The captain, Leah Williamson's not there. Fran Kirby, Beth Mead, players like this that you associate with the women's team have been missing this tournament as well. They've had people like Jill Scott and Ellen White retire, so those leaders have gone. So they're having to evolve and change all the time as well. So I couldn't really sing their praises high enough. And the manager's a very impressive lady as well. Always very conducts herself well in interviews. Again, doesn't look flustered, very calm. And they've got such a good group and winning mentality there. And I don't think you can look past them for going on and doing the Euro and World Cup double come Sunday.
Yeah, that would be great. Serena Wiegman, actually, she's been a manager in four different major tournaments in the women's game, and she's qualified for the final in every single tournament. I actually think she won the Euros with the Dutch. Was it with the Dutch?
Probably. She is Dutch, isn't she?
Yeah, so she won the Euros before she won the Euros with us last year or the year before? And then like I completely echo what you said about when you watched England men's team, there's like a massive sort of sense of like jeopardy or self-sabotage that you just always sort of think about with the England team. Whereas with this women's team, and even they had that sort of self-sabotage moment with the Lauren James sending off in the Nigeria game, and they just come through it. And I felt that way when I was watching the Australia game. It was like, okay, Australia equalised with a really good goal, and obviously the home crowd gets on you. It's easy to sort of go in your shell as a country. You're basically the away team, but we just sort of like turn the screw a bit. I fully expect us to beat the Spanish. Have you? I don't know if you guys listened to a couple of podcasts this morning about the Spanish are in a completely different situation to us, where they are in like a bit of a controversial moment with their manager, where they all hate their manager. They're all basically like, there's a couple of the girls, their best players, who didn't go to the tournament in protest because their manager was such a dickhead to them, and apparently he would do things like force the girls to keep their bedroom doors open until midnight, because he wanted to have that much control over them. He wanted to make sure they were still in, and all of this sort of stuff. And he would go through their like food shopping sort of lists and stuff like that. Honestly, yeah. So it's a complete contrast to obviously the environment that Wiegman has created, where the girls seem to absolutely love going to represent England for the Lionesses. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens on Sunday. I'll be watching it in Centre Parks with all of the family. We've had to cancel a roast dinner planned, which my nan wasn't too happy about, but she understands.
Yeah, being a lioness at heart, I'm sure your nan will be able to accept that. Yeah, I'm actually due to go to IKEA, and my missus asked if I want to stay about and watch it. So I think I've got a bit of a hall pass there to miss an IKEA trip. So thanks to Lionesses for that. Also, just to go back to the Spain manager before we move on, that sounds like the wrong side of leadership to me. That almost gets into a bit weird behaviour. So as a general rule, Pyramid Podcast don't condone people having to leave their bedroom doors open till midnight. I think we can all strongly say that. But no, good luck to him. And on Wiegman, the manager, I see that USA are now after a new manager, and the FA have apparently launched a bit of a hands-off to her. But I just wonder if she wins the Euros and then wins the World Cup, with USA being such a big force in the women's game, whether she then might think that's the right time to step aside. Like, does she want to then try and go through winning the Euros again? International teams tend to go in cycles, don't they? Like, feels like our men's team are at the peak of that cycle now. I wonder if she wins the World Cup, if she'll go on. But I have also seen that someone's tipped her to be the next England men's manager after Southgate. So it'd be interesting to see how her career pans out moving forward. But yeah, good luck to the Lionesses. If any of you are listening, we're fully behind you, and good luck. So moving back, boys, to the day before then, Tuesday. So Footy League back, only match day 3. Some sort of weird and wonderful results. I just want to touch on Derby, if we can. So Derby lost again, I think 2-1 against Oxford. They did score in the 88th minute through Waghorn, who's just re-signed for them, who might be their goals. But I've seen some stuff on Twitter and the media about, Paul Warren's job being on the line. Just Laura, I want to get your gauge on that, and then let's drill down into managements in sack races on the second, third week of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we're only 3 games into the new season, but it's all about context and what the managers had already. And I was actually, in my head, Paul Warren went to Derby sort of halfway through last season, but he actually has been there since September. So he's had the best part of a season already. And yeah, we've spoken about it before. Time is a rare commodity in football, especially when you're a manager of a club like Derby in League One. So I'm not surprised to hear murmurs of or rumours about his position. You can say it's only 3 games into the season, but upon the backdrop of last season as well, going in there September and then missing out on the playoffs, which I don't think would have been expected considering Paul Warren's got arguably a much smaller club in Rotherham out of that league a couple of times, probably wasn't in the plan. So I wouldn't be surprised if it does get a little bit uneasy for him then. But having said that, if I was the owner or the decision maker at Derby, I wouldn't be getting rid of him anytime soon, because I don't think you're going to get many people better than him or more equipped and experienced than him to lead them out of that division. But yeah, poorish start, but it's only 3 games in, and Oxford are a good side. They're another heavily fancied side in League One, so maybe not time to panic. But yeah, probably due a little bit of pressure unless they go on a bit of a run soon.
Yeah, and Tomo, what, just drilling down, I know he's been there a year, but for this season, 3 games into it, what's your thoughts on sort of sack races already being spoken about in the league at this stage?
It's all obviously, it's like, to caveat, it is all about context and individual context, but I don't particularly like. Imagine you've gotten 6 weeks or 7-8 weeks of a pre-season, and then you sack your gaffer 2 weeks into the season because he's not had the best start. I'll take Loro's points on board. They missed out on the playoffs last year. We obviously I think we all listened to that podcast that he did when he was Rotherham manager. I think it was called The Moment of Truth. And also he's an ex-Yeovil player. So I've definitely got a soft spot for him. He seemed like a thoroughly good bloke on that podcast. And so I sort of back him to get it right. But Loro is completely correct when he says, look, it's Derby, it's League One. They've got to be automatic promotion challengers, haven't they? Otherwise they will look to change. But yeah, I do think it's too soon. They've got to give him. You've got to give him at least sort of 6 games. I mean,
yeah. The other thing I would say is, like, just in Paul Warden's defence, although he's been there since last September, that would make this summer his first summer. And we're not at the end of the transfer window yet, and he has lost some key players. Obviously, David McGoldrick's gone to Nottingham, where it all started for him, and they've also lost Jason Knight to Bristol City as well. So I still think they'll probably expect a few incomings there, and you can't really judge the table and the teams in the leagues until at least 10 games, I don't think. So although it's a bit of a shaky start, yeah, you're right. We've all got a bit of an affinity with Paul Warne. Ex-Yeovil. I love that podcast he did, him and Carl Robinson. I wish they'd do another one of those. Seems like a good guy, good manager. He's done it before. So yeah, like I said, if I was the Derby hierarchy, I wouldn't be panicking on Paul Warne just yet. But at the same time, you can understand probably a bit of impatience given the size of that club and where they are.
Yeah, and I think he will be given a little bit more time, but just for context, in their next 5 games between now and mid-September, they go to Peterborough, go to Bolton, host Portsmouth, Northampton, and Fleetwood. So there's some hard games there. I think Bolton look like they might go on to have a really strong season. I know form's only 3 games in, but they look like they're scoring goals as well. Peterborough, obviously, a force that we've spoken about, and Portsmouth also. So I think it could be crunch time for him over the next month. Otherwise, he could fall foul. On that moment of truth as well, random bit of trivia for you. Last season, I bumped into Carl Robinson in a McDonald's on the way home from my footy match, and he was in getting a Mackey's. He had his driver waiting in the car park. Spoke to him, said, I love the pod, asked if they'd do it again. And he said they couldn't because Sky basically kicked off because of the coverage, had match day coverage in it. They have EFL rights. So basically, BBC had been told, you can't do that again. Carl went on to be sacked from Oxford, and yeah, I wish him well. Boys, a little quiz for you. Obviously, speaking about too soon to sack a manager, what is the shortest reign that a footy manager's had before in the professional game? Caveat, this is based off the website I went on to. It was the top 20. What's the shortest reign?
Wasn't it? Is it not Leroy Rossignol?
Yeah. How long?
Oh, I don't know, but I remember seeing that stat knocking about. But yeah, Leroy Rossignol, I can't remember. Was it Torquay?
Yeah, it was Torquay.
Yeah, but I don't know how long. A couple hours probably.
No, he didn't get that, Leroy. He got 10 minutes. So Leroy got made manager of Torquay at, say, like 3 o'clock. By time 3:10 had happened, a takeover happened and they sacked him and brought in the manager that they wanted. But Leroy did get a compensation package, so said, nice work if you can get it. So yeah, fair play to Leroy. But yeah, 10 minutes, so not quite that harsh for Paul Warren, but certainly needs to turn it round. Boys, let's move on and talk about Monday Night Footy. Obviously, we recorded the pod just before Monday Night Football coverage started. We spoke about Wolves losing their manager. United probably looking to start strong at Old Trafford with their new signings starting, but didn't probably turn out how we predicted. I think we were sort of 3-0, 4-0 in the pod. Tomo, could get your opinion on United's display?
Rudderless, piss poor. Just a couple of little. I mean, Wolves were great on the night. They looked fitter, stronger. Looked like they'd had like a longer and sort of more intense pre-season. Their XG was 2.49. United's was only 1.5. They had 23 shots to United's 15. 6 of those on target. United only had 3 on target. Onana had a debut to remember, but almost a debut to forget at the end. He obviously made 6 saves. But I don't know what minute it was, 92nd, 93rd. He comes for that cross, in my opinion, absolutely no way near the ball, and took out a couple of the Wolves boys. I was pretty bemused why it wasn't a penalty. So, and if it was a penalty, you'd expect Wolves to put it away and then get at least a deserved point. But like I said at the start of the podcast, as a United fan, those are the sort of, like, when you don't play well, but you get the 3 points, you almost sort of like forget the game, move on quickly. So yeah, I was disappointed with the performance, but obviously 3 points is 3 points.
Yeah, Lauro, from a neutral perspective, bring you in. I'm sure you watched it. In fact, I know you watched it. You spoke a bit about Rashford through the middle and his body language as well. Just your thoughts on the game and Rashford.
Yeah, well, Rashford's best position's on the left, isn't it? I mean, we don't need to go over that every single season and figure it out every single time. He said it himself, I think, in another podcast recently. He likes playing on the left. He gets bored up front, and he doesn't know how to do the runs on the right. So, and he's their best player. So put him on the left and then go from there. Don't do it the other way around. So yeah, ineffective Rashford. I thought Wolves were very good. I was really impressed. I said before the game I don't rate that Cunha at all, but I thought he was mightily impressive. I thought Lamina had an amazing game in midfield. Thought he bossed it. So good on Gary O'Neill for getting Wolves up for that game and getting them looking like a decent side. Because I think after Lopetegui went, a lot of people were having them as quite good favourites to be right down there, and they might still be, but good start from them. And yeah, also definite penalty. I get the argument that sometimes goalkeepers are going to make different kinds of challenges because they can go for stuff with their hands and things can look a little bit more untidy, but that was basically a double clothesline when he realised he was getting nowhere near the ball. So if you're a Wolves fan, you'd be, I think, rightfully disgruntled at the decision there. But yeah, got away with one. And like Tigo said, you want to be winning the games when you're not playing well, because when it does click, hopefully you'll go on a run then. So not impressed with Man United, but a good win all the same.
What I will say, let me just jump in there, Murph, is I was actually, apart from obviously that challenge, I was actually really impressed with Onana's performance and his debut. He looked assured with his hands, which people are saying are no way near as good as De Gea's. And obviously we all know about and I've heard about his passing ability, which I was impressed with. The biggest issue of the game, I thought, was the midfield 3 of Casemiro, Bruno, and Mason Mount. I thought Bruno and Mason Mount played far too, sort of their pressing was far too sort of high up the pitch. And it quite often when Wolves broke that press, which they pretty much did most of the time, it left Casemiro isolated. And although we all agree Casemiro is a really good player, great leader, obviously he's got the mentality to win at the very top, but his mobility isn't quite as good as it once was, and he basically got ran all over. Something for Erik ten Hag to think about going forward, because obviously I thought we bought Mason Mount to sort of change that aspect of our game where we had Eriksen there and he wasn't mobile alongside Casemiro. I don't know what you think about that, Murph.
Yeah, I agree. I thought we looked absolutely shocking. Well, shocking all round, other than a select few. But in midfield, it was like pathetic, some of the attacks that they were going on. I mean, Martinez could have got sent off in the first half. He sort of barged Kuna on a yellow, and luckily he didn't go down. He stayed true and sort of ran through. But midfield bypass there. I think there was another one in the second half where Casemiro sort of goes to shield and Kuna just drives through him and past Varane as well. But I don't know what the team talk was there, because like you, I thought Mount was coming in to add those legs that Ericsson didn't have. But last year we went from, a couple of years ago we'd have McFred and we were losing every midfield battle. But last year we seemed to like control games and lead games through midfield. I mean, Casemiro doesn't look like he's come back like he was last year. So that's one point. But yeah, he needs to sort something out with Mount. And then watching Monday Night Football afterwards, and Gary Neville's like, "Oh, we need Amrabat in there next to Casemiro," and I'm thinking to myself, well, hang on a minute, Mount's like 50 odd million. He was the guy to come into midfield to provide some cover for Bruno and Ericsson, starting in one of those positions. If we're now saying that we need someone next to Casemiro and Bruno's club captain, is Mason Mount no longer in United's first team, being one of our main acquisitions of the summer? Is he suddenly a winger option where you've got?
I saw Gary Neville reply to someone on Twitter saying for this weekend he'd bring McTominay in, McTominay, stick him next to Casemiro, play Bruno, and then put Mount on the left and Rashford up front, obviously drop Garnacho, and then Mount can come in and create a box with obviously Shaw coming up the left. But I think it's worrying that we're having those conversations after game one.
Yeah, my predictions from that game will be that we'll either play Bruno or Mount from the right, actually, because Anthony didn't look the best. And especially in the big games, I think you'll play Mount or Bruno on the right, and then you'll bring in a McTominay type, whether or not he goes to West Ham, and we bring in Amrabat or Anana or someone, maybe even Kobe Maino, once he's back from injury. But because it did look like you can't move forward with that midfield. And if you'd think United should be comfortable enough to play at Old Trafford against Wolves, a team most sensible pundits tip to go down, given the state of affairs at that club, you'd think they'd be able to play that midfield free. And yet it got completely picked apart. Imagine going to the Etihad and playing that midfield free.
I think Casemiro's the key there. I think if he has a good game, then that midfield is allowed to be better and allowed to be more effective. But when you're talking about bringing someone in alongside him, suddenly the whole dynamic of the team changes, and you've got two effectively, not defensive midfielders, but running midfielders rather than dynamic midfielders. And like you say, Mason Mount goes out wide when he was brought in to be a central player. It seems like Plan A is going out the window straight away.
Yeah,
So obviously I'm a neutral, but I'm sure you're worried.
Yeah, no, it is worrying. I think I'm going to wait a couple games and take that with a pinch of salt, because as you say, Tomo, we can't be in the situation where we're needing to play Amrabat and Casemiro at home to Wolves. A, Amrabat doesn't even play for Man United, but B, which is obviously an issue, but B, like those home games are where you have someone sitting in front of a back four and you're driving forward with the two midfielders and your three forward. But I think you're right. I think maybe Bruno or Mount from the right, and then maybe Sancho in playing false nine and Rashford back out on the left, because Sancho played there quite a bit in pre-season. I thought he actually looked fairly sharp when he came on, and we were better when he was on the pitch. Garnacho looked terrible.
When's the striker going to be fit?
Well, he's just posted today with some photo with a soon red devil emoji, so with him in a training top. So I'm hoping not too long. People had said initially the Arsenal game, which I think is a couple of weeks away, but yeah, I mean, what worries me for that is Martial can't stay fit. If Hodgland is injury prone or that back problem becomes a real issue, you're doing what Loro says, where Rashford then has to play number 9. You're not only not playing a striker up front, you're then taking your best player out of his left wing position. So, and with midfield a bit unsettled as well, that concerns me, United. But I'm sure we might speak on Monday's pod, and we've just gone and won at Spurs, and Mount scored and was gravy. So let's give it.
You won't be winning at Spurs playing like you did on Monday.
Yeah, and what I will say about Spurs is obviously they look so much more attacking under Ange. They basically go for it, don't they? So if they sort of turn it on and maybe are relatively ruthless in their finishing and stuff like that, you can see them going 2-0 up early doors, just running all over that midfield, just like Wolves did. The difference between Wolves and Spurs are you've got Son and Kulusevski and James Maddison on the end and delivering these balls, as opposed to Wolves. They had all of these chances and good scenarios and good situations in the game. They just couldn't finish their dinner. And the worrying thing for a United fan is better teams will finish those and be more clinical. And you can almost oh God, I'm dreading the day when we lose 5-6-0 because something like that could happen. Wolves could have won that game 3-4-1.
Yeah. That's a real possibility for United this year. That sort of like City 6-3, which was like a mauling until we kind of got a couple at the end, and the Liverpool away, the way that the team set up like that, if we go to a big away ground like that, we'll get absolutely mauled. But yeah, to be honest, with how Wolves is finishing, if they'd have got the penalty, I'd have backed them to miss that as well. So yeah, good win for United. So from one footballing juggernaut to another, Loro, Tuesday night we went to Hewish Park, saw the Glovers against Truro. Massive kind of league game for us after a loss to start, but then 3 points and then a midweek game. Went 1-0 down, was looking a bit sticky, but ended up getting the 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of moment that can be a catalyst to go on, I think. We got the 3 points, the monkey off our back that we hadn't won since, I think, March on the weekend. Tuesday, we went a goal down to a good Truro side, to be fair. They equipped themselves well and they were difficult to play against. But that character, when we weren't playing very well, to get back in the game, not just to get a point, but to go on and win it in the last minute, and the elation that comes with that. It's better winning the game in the last minute coming from behind than winning 1-0. Hopefully, I hope will lead into a game that I've been hoping for since the start of the season, where we go and blow someone away. Like, really, I feel like we should be doing in the National League South. Not to be disrespectful to the other teams, but we know enough about football to know that the players that we've got, the manager that we've got, and the crowds that we're getting should really be manifesting some big wins for us. So we've still got another 2 home games in a row. So hopefully that can come. But what did you think about Tuesday night, Murph?
Yeah, I thought Yeovil looked pretty poor, to be honest. I think we spoke, didn't we, about it, that it seems like Yeovil have signed 3 big name sort of forwards in Reece Murphy, Jake Hyde, Frank Noble. We got Jordan Maguire-Drew, who's obviously ex-Football League, and we're trying to fit all 4 into some form of formation. 4-3-3 would probably be the closest you could get to doing that, but that means either Murphy or Hyde have to go right wing with Noble through the left. But yeah, I think great to win the game. Worrying signs with the performance, but I would like to see Cooper on Saturday, and luckily get to go again with my injury to watch it. I'd like to see one of those front 3 out of the side and off the bench, and I'd bring Ollie Thomas in, who scored our equaliser, and play him off one of the flanks, or bring another midfielder in and put Maguire-Drew out wide, and then just have one of Murphy and Hyde through the middle. But yeah, it's good to see. I mean, the crowds are great, aren't they? 3,500 or just under 3,500 back at Yeovil. They're doing stuff behind one of the stands now with live music, bars, food. It's amazing what a little bit of TLC for a footy club can do for the fans. So yeah, long may it continue. And yeah, hopefully on Monday we're talking about another 3 points for the Glovers. And Tomo, your brother Jake, then I guess at Centre Park, going to have to miss a Yeovil game. He must be gutted about that.
Yeah. You can imagine Centre Parks with the family or Yeovil, couple of pints. I think he'd prefer that, but I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, it's exciting what's going on in Yeovil the last couple of months of the new owner, and obviously Yeovil's a small town, so we hear stories and stuff about what's going on at the club. So hopefully it means we're gonna get back promoted to the National League.
Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, up the Glovers. Boys, let's have a look ahead to weekend action then, focusing on the Prem. So I was unsure if we had a Friday night football that was worth watching. Before we do go into the Prem, actually, that's very rude of me. There is a Friday night football that some would say is worth watching, but in the Championship, Lauro, Leeds host West Brom. Thoughts on that game? I know you've had a couple of players who are sort of refusing to train or saying they're out, but also some movement in the transfer market. Any aspirations for that game Friday, home to the Baggies?
No aspirations at all. I do not care about the result. I couldn't care less. I really, really like Daniel Farker. I'm right behind him. As he says, August is going to be a really, really difficult month. I think by the start of next week, we'll have the players out that want to go. And I think he sort of alluded to the fact that next week, hopefully, we'll know what we can and can't do in the transfer market. I don't reading between the lines. I don't think it's so much money for Leeds. I think it's what we're allowed to spend financial fair play wise, and a lot of the players obviously that have gone out on loan as well. So I don't know how that's balanced the books, but I'm expecting. Look, I'd love us to go and beat West Brom on Friday, but like I said, August is almost a write-off, and we'll be judging from September going onwards. But like I said, Daniel Farker right behind him. I think he's best man for the job. Really, really impressive what he's how he's handling himself in the situation at the moment. And of course, would love 3 points, but yeah, not overly confident they'll come on Friday, to be honest.
Okay. Well, good luck to Dirty Leeds at home to West Brom. And then, Tomo, Premier League, Friday night football.
I know you're going to ask me. Go on.
No, I'm not going to ask about. Oh, well, I will mention him, but I was actually going to ask you if you were to look on Friday night football and be like, is there one, and think what could be the most disappointing fixture it could be? Would Forest hosting Sheffield United be in the top three, do you think?
Yeah, you'd have to think so, wouldn't you? Although obviously that would be a good fixture for my boy Morgan Gibbs-White to get a couple of FPL returns. I expect Forest to win that, but I won't be watching.
Can I just say that's an absolutely massive game? Because when you're Sheffield United, there's only, and I know this from being a Leeds fan for the last couple of years, the first season was good, but the last couple of years were tough. You look at the fixture list, and every single fixture in the Premier League is difficult. And playing Nottingham Forest, I mean, they're a decent side, but that's one of the easier games in quotation marks. Do you know what I mean? That's one of the games where you need to be picking up points already. And Nottingham Forest, likewise, they can't be losing to Sheffield United. So, you know, I think that's an absolutely huge game. And yeah, I'll be watching on the split screen with Leeds West Brom on the other side.
Yeah, to be fair, Sheffield United have made a couple of signings, haven't they? Tom Davis has come in on a free, the Everton lad, and obviously
Hamer.
Yeah, Hamer or Harmer, however you say it, he's come in, and obviously he will add something because basically pretty much the best player in the Championship last year, especially towards the end of the season. So yeah, maybe we talked it down a bit, but I might watch it now.
Yeah, they go on to be the games that are free all, don't they? But yeah, Sheffield United looked terrible at Palace on the opening fixture. I thought Forest were obviously outplayed at Arsenal, but grew into the game and nearly nicked something. So I think home win for me as well. Move on to Saturday, boys. No lunchtime kickoff for that one that I can see, but we got double bumper in the evening. So we'll start at the evening actually, because some big fixtures there. Champion City host Newcastle. Lauro, thoughts on that fixture result, and then any FPL kind of considerations for yourself, including is Haaland captain regardless?
Yeah. Generally, Man City are my worst team to watch in the Premier League because, like, they're so good, it's boring, aren't they? But Newcastle are really, really exciting me. And I remember this fixture last year. It might have been at St James's, but early on last season, Newcastle played Man City and it was 3-3. And everyone sort of sat up and thought, oh, these are a good side here. But now with Isaac firing, we've got Harvey Barnes coming in and Tonali in midfield. Newcastle look like they've improved. And for me, I said this at the start of the season. I know sort of predicted Arsenal to win the league. I know I'm not overly confident in that, but I think they might be able to do it this year. I'm worried about City. KDB's out now. We know they've lost the goals of Gundogan and Mahrez already. Is that going to cut off Haaland's supply line? Again, and couple that with the fact they're playing a really difficult fixture against Eddie Howe's Newcastle. I'm not so sure this is 1 week where everyone's going to have Haaland. Or if they do, I think it's quite a good opportunity without the gift of hindsight to be able to maybe risk it and put someone like you mentioned earlier, Murph Luis Diaz, or someone who's got a promising looking fixture instead. So I'm expecting a good game, and I'd love to see Newcastle win.
Yeah, completely agree. Obviously, City going to Greece last night, putting so much effort into the Super Cup. And you think, like we spoke about on Monday, the sort of the fitness levels and the energy levels that Newcastle team have, and not only the starting 11, but you're looking at the players who are coming off the bench and making an impact. They just sort of seem like a completely relentless outfit. And the only issue is it's obviously at the Etihad, and we all know about City's record at the Etihad. But I'm with you, Laura. I'd love to see Newcastle cause some issues. And I do remember the Kieran Trippier free kick from last year. It was you are right, it was at the St James's Park. But if there is a time for them to get points at the Etihad, it would be this one, because obviously they've had a free run at it this week, full week of training. And obviously they're fucking banging form and full of confidence. So really interesting game. Hope Newcastle do it.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, we'd love Newcastle to get a result. I think that would be huge for them. I know you can't talk about a title race after 2 days, but you take apart Villa like you do there and then follow it up winning at the Etihad. That's a statement. That FPL wise, I've actually benched both my Newcastle players. Put Trippier on the bench. I've got Anderson on there, who's a bit of a bench player anyway, and I think I'm going to stick with captain for Haaland just because the majority will, and it's early, and if he goes and bags a brace, then it's just so frustrating. But yeah,
just a quick one on Haaland.
Go on, boys. Go on.
Can I just say, I've just had a quick look. Newcastle, 19-5 to win that game. Now, nearly 4-1 sounds a lot, but that's a hell of a low price for a team going to the Etihad. And Man City are nearly evens, which must be nearly unheard of at the Etihad. So other people, obviously, I think the bookies' odds are governed by what people are betting on. People are thinking the same sort of thing. So yeah, just like I said earlier, I'll be watching that, expecting something maybe unexpected.
Tom, I'll bring you in a minute just to factor into that, Laurie. Just thinking that through. City of, Pep did his whole thing after the game of thank you so much to the Premier League for making us play Saturday. They've played last night, haven't they, and gone to penalties. I don't know, where was the game, Tomo?
It was in Greece.
Yeah, so flight to Greece and back, a midweek fixture. There really isn't a better time for Newcastle to go there and get a result, is there?
No,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think we're all on the same page there. What I just wanted to come in and say more on the FPL lines was I saw this week Haaland is now over 90% owned. I think makes him the highest owned player ever in FPL. The whole Haaland thing, I do think he does kind of make it a 10-player game, doesn't he? Don't you think? He's just a bit, really, captaincy is set and forget as well. It's a bit boring. It does make the game a slightly sort of more challenging, I think, because basically a 10-player game. What do you think, Murph?
That's what I said on one of our first ever pods. I think they should make him 20 million. Do you know what I mean? If you want him, your midfield or your defense has to be absolute crap. Do you know what I mean? And just shake it right up. But look, everyone captains Haaland because obviously you don't want to risk missing the game where he scores 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. But again, I don't think Newcastle's the team he's going to do that against. And say he hasn't started the season the best form. He got a brace at Burnley, but didn't look overly potent last night. And if there's a game that he's not going to score the goals in, I think we're bigging Newcastle up a bit too much now, but Saturday could be it.
Yeah, especially as the team Fergie was most impressed with at the weekend was Aston Villa. So yeah, thanks for that, Fergie. Boys, got to move on, conscious of time. So other big fixture that day, I would say, is the 5:30 kickoff. We've already spoken about United on Monday. We spoke on Monday about Spurs on Sunday. Can I just get a quick prediction on the Spurs United game at 5:30 and FPL considerations for the pair of you?
Yeah, so quickly, you can't imagine. I predict a Spurs win, but I can't imagine Man United being as bad as that. Just last season, if last season was anything to go by, United, they were poor quite often, but invariably in the next game they performed better. So maybe I'm talking myself into a United sort of good performance and good result. Let's just call it a score draw. I expect there to be goals.
Laura?
Yeah, I was going to say Desmond. I agree with Tom. I don't expect United to be as bad as they were on Monday, but they're not playing Wolves. They're playing Tottenham at Tottenham with my man Ange at the helm. So I expect Tottenham to be well up for it, give a good account of themselves, but also expect United to bounce back somewhat. So I'm going to go score draw as well, 2-2.
Yeah, I'll just add to that I think United won't be that bad, but I don't think we got a single win at a top recognised team in the league. I'm not sure what that was, top 7 or top 8 from last year. We didn't get a win. I think we did draw at Spurs, but after Sancho scored and we were romping that game. But yeah, really interested to see how we do travel into a big side. If we play like we did on Monday with Kulusevski, Richarlison, Son and Maddison coming at us, we'll be badly punished. So heart says United win away, but head says we will escape with a score draw with a few hairy moments to lose it. Boys, then a couple other games there. So we touched on Wolves and how bright they were. And on Monday, we spoke about the quality of Brighton. Wolves host Brighton. I think really interesting to see whether Monday was a bit of a flash in the pan from Wolves / United terrible, or whether they actually are going to be a bit of a force under Gary O'Neill. I can't call that game. Laura, what's your thoughts?
I'm going to go Wolves. And the reason is Brighton always let me down. And they were one of the key reasons Leeds got relegated last season when Everton couldn't buy a point, suddenly went down to the Amex and stuffed them 5-0, I think it was. And I just think Wolves they'll have their tails up after that Man United game. Touched on it before. Gary O'Neill seems to have a way of getting these under fancy teams up for games and performing well. I'm going to go, and we'll revisit this next week because I'll be interested to see how it plays out. I'm going to go 2-1 Wolves. And like I said, I wasn't overly impressed with Brighton on the opening day, which sounds silly because they won 4-1, but I just thought Luton were really, really bad. So might be completely wrong, might be a rout for Brighton, but I'm going to go Wolves.
Tomo?
I predict it will be a tight game. But I think and hope that he'll start Evan Ferguson. And I think, obviously, Estupinian looked electric in the first game of the season. He actually had one of the highest XG of all players in FPL, not just defenders. So, yeah. So, selfishly, purely for me, FPL, Mitoma, Estupinian and Ferguson, I'm going to go for a Brighton win.
Yeah, I'm going to have to join you there. Just heart overhead. I've got triple Brighton, those 3 players. Hopefully Ferguson starts afterwards. Mitoma looks gravy, and Estepinian's probably in his last season before becoming Man City starting left back. So yeah, got all 3 of them. So I'm going to go 3-0 Brighton. Estepinian scores 1, gets the assist for the other 2, and he assists Mitoma and Ferguson. So yeah, other fixtures on Saturday, boys. So Luton were going to be hosting Burnley, but obviously that game's not happening now due to the groundworks needed. So a much needed rest for both sides, I'd say. Liverpool host Bournemouth. Liverpool have gone from dicking about trying to get Lavia, couldn't get that one sorted. Going all in on Saicedo, couldn't get that sorted. Revisiting Lavia and couldn't get that sorted. And have now landed on 30-year-old Japanese midfielder Endo, which might spell end of their Champions League hopes. But yeah. Interesting. I mean, an interesting move. He asked the club that was it Stuttgart he was leaving to please accept to pursue his lifelong dream. I mean, I bet he still can't believe it, but yeah, they've got their holding midfielder. I'm not sure that will matter for much against Bournemouth home, but yeah, A, thoughts on that signing, and B, result on Saturday.
I'm not going to claim to be an expert on Wataru Endo, but from what I've heard, he's a fairly decent player, good pro. He's 30 years old, so there's not much sort of improvement left in him, I would suggest. But they clearly needed someone in that position. So yeah, but other than that, the one thing I'm sort of thinking about in that game for me is Trent Alexander-Arnold, because if he doesn't pull up trees and look like the sort of player that I want him to be, I might get rid of him in my FPL team because he's so expensive. And obviously, I don't predict Liverpool to get that many clean sheets this year. So yeah, he's one I'm hoping. But in this fixture last year, I think was it 9-1 or 8-1 or maybe 8-0.
It was 9-0.
Yeah, so they're 9-0, and he scored got a couple of assists. So actually, I'm hoping for another sort of 20-point haul, in which case I'll keep him in my team. But yeah, he's the one.
I was just going to say, be wary, right? Because last year, this fixture, it was about this time of year as well, was 9-0 Liverpool, and Salah didn't have a goal or assist. I thought I was at Ant and Deck. I was in the Thatcher's end watching Yeovil play, checking my phone, obviously captain Salah, thinking, oh, nice little differential here. 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 8-0, 9-0. Nothing from Salah. Right, so just be wary, thinking Bournemouth at home, it's guaranteed points. And just to touch on the Endo signing, I think they're taking the absolute piss with that. Honestly, I think they're taking the absolute piss. I think they're throwing their toys out the pram and going, oh, we'll just sign Endo then. Like Murph said, end of. Honestly, I think that's giving up the goat and just thinking, oh, we wanted Caicedo, we wanted Lavia, oh, fuck it, sign Endo. I think their fans would be absolutely furious with that acquisition.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In that typical FPL predicament where you want Liverpool to lose, but I have got Diaz, who there was a slight inkling to captain to go a bit different from Haaland at Newcastle. Got Van Dijk as well, so points be needed for him. So hopefully 4-3 Bournemouth with a Van Dijk brace and Luis scoring. But no, I think Liverpool win that quite handsomely. They look good going forward at Chelsea in spells. They got scary options up there. So yeah, fancy them to win that quite comfortably. And then final game on Saturday, boys. Fulham host Brentford. What would have last year probably been an FPL a big game with most people either having Mitro and or Tony. I don't think Eve will be playing now. Tony definitely not, and I believe Mitro's getting his wish to go over to Saudi and 45 million move, go and play with Neymar and the boys. So yeah, thoughts on that fixture? I don't know if anyone's got any players from those teams. Anyone got Mbueno or anything like that?
From an FPL point of view, the only two I would consider would be Leno in goal and Rico Henry. Mbuemo obviously is a good addition. Fact that he's on penalty duty now that Tony's not there. But I was actually really impressed with Rico Henry's performance against Spurs. I thought he got down the wing, bombed down. He was dangerous. He looked like he can get in a sit. Like he's one. If Ivan Tony was there, he'd be like, yeah, get Rico Henry in because every single cross to Tony would be on the end of. But yeah, I don't expect too much from that game. Probably a Fulham win.
I agree.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
I agree. Home win. I think Fulham have got a bit of credit in the bank from the result that they got at Everton. Their season's off and running. They can just lap up the first home game of the season for themselves. And, Brentford, again, I think they were okay, weren't they, against Spurs? But like I said, missing Tony, I think they went 2-1 up, didn't they, against Spurs and had to go away with a point in the end. So they'll be wanting to put points on the board as quickly as possible. And again, a bit like, not so much relegation, but a bit like Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest. These are games where you're really looking at it, mid-table clashes, thinking you want to get points. So maybe a bit of pressure on Brentford, but I think home win 2-0 Fulham.
Yeah, I think Fulham will win that as well. Actually, I really want Raul Jimenez to score as well. I'd love him to have a good season. I think he had a chance on Saturday, but yeah, I'd love him to do well. Mitro's a big loss. Be interested to see if they reinvest that money. I think if Willian hasn't gone, he's wanting to go as well from that side. So two big players from last year. Andreas, who used to be in most FPL sides, is on the bench now as well. So be interesting to see how that one goes, but I will go for Fulham. Moving on to Super Sunday quickly then, boys. So starts at 2:00. Villa host Everton. Obviously Villa battered on Saturday evening, as we spoke about. Fergie really impressed with them. Everton should have probably won.
I wish you'd stop calling Fergie like Fergie. Call him Sir Alex.
Sir Alec. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sir Alec. Well, he lost a bit of respect, didn't he, with that shout? He would have
He's
been.
He's not the Black Eyed Peas singer.
Well, I thought it was when I saw that shout. So now Fergie talked at Villa at the weekend. I thought, what's she got to say about that? No, it turned out to be Sir Alex. Yeah. So Villa host Everton. Everton definitely should have won at the weekend. Villa definitely shouldn't. But thoughts on that one? Home win?
Yeah, I'll predict Villa to quickly forget about almost right off their last game. I actually don't think they were as bad as sort of the 5-1 score suggests. Especially, I thought they were well in the game basically until Tyrone Mings went off injured, and it sort of knocked them for 6 a little bit. And with Everton, you just can't see them scoring ever again in the Premier League. So I predict a home win.
Yeah, the odds on that game are exactly the same as Man City Newcastle, which is interesting. They think there's the same gulf between Villa and Everton, between City and Newcastle. So I don't know. Maybe Sir Alex is providing the odds for Aston Villa. But I think Everton. The general consensus seems to be that they played well at home against Fulham last week, but at the end of the day, they lost. So home win. Lots of talent in that Villa team. Good manager. Villa Park will be bouncing. I'm sure they'll want to put right last weekend and 3-1.
Yeah. Home win, Ollie Watkins to score. Everton probably have chances, won't convert one. Neil Maupay can't hit a barn door. So, yeah, agree with that, chaps. Big game at 4:30, actually. Type of game that big sides, want to win and would expect to win, but often don't. Chelsea go away to West Ham. People impressed with Chelsea on Sunday. At one point, when Salah's goal disallowed, looked like they might get routed, but grew into that game and probably should have won it. They've added Caicedo into that midfield. But Tomo, I think some breaking news this afternoon about Reece James.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be out injured for the foreseeable with a hamstring injury, which is obviously a blow. But they have got this that Lyon fullback Malo Gusto to come in, and they obviously signed him for that exact reason, because Reece James is very injury prone, which is unfortunate for him. Caicedo, obviously, it'll be interesting to see if he gets his debut and to see where he fits alongside Enzo. And then you've got James Ward-Prowse will probably come in for his debut alongside Edson Alvarez. I'm not sure if he made his debut last week. The fact that it's at West Ham makes me think they could get something, but Chelsea were impressive last week, so that's a good game, I think. But I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I've got no idea really what to expect from West Ham this season. Need to see a bit more of them. Obviously got a point, I think, at Bournemouth last weekend. I was impressed with Chelsea, and my head says it should be an away win, but it's a big game for Jackson. It's all right drawing to Liverpool and missing a load of chances. You need to go and take the game away from West Ham now if you're going to be a starting strike and spearheading the attack of a team like Chelsea. So big game for him. I am going to go for Chelsea. Just 2-1.
Yeah, I'll even it up, so we got a different result for this one because we've gone the same pretty much. I'm going to go West Ham win. I think that Chelsea are obviously still gelling, new players in. New captain's going to be out. Ward-Prowse added in for West Ham. Fancy him to do something. Yeah, I'm going to go for West Ham. I'm going to go close game, but I'm going to go them 2-1. I think Jared Bowen might might score again. Who, might I just add, I am absolutely shocked with, never seems to be linked with a transfer anywhere. I think he's brilliant. Yeah, I'm really, really surprised that he never seems to be on
He's
any.
at his level. He's at his level.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think he's a really good player, and West Ham are obviously a really good Premier League club. But where's the next step up from West Ham that he could go? Do you think he would get into Tottenham's team or Liverpool's team? I don't think he would.
What about?
I think he'd be better. I think I'd start him over Kulusevski, but he can't really leave West Ham, can he? Because he's basically Danny Dyer's son-in-law, so he's probably on a lifetime contract there.
Well, me personally, I wouldn't start him over Kulusevski. I think he's a really good player, but maybe not quite at the highest level of the Prem. But yeah.
Newcastle over Almiron?
No.
Wow.
Oh, definitely Newcastle over Almiron. That's a hideous. Sorry, on this podcast we do need to call out shouts like that. But I think Newcastle's next signing in that position will probably be. I think you've got Almiron, Bowen, next level type player, and I think their next acquisition on that side will probably be up here. Yeah, but that's almost laughable. T-Gal suggesting there. Of course, you'd start Bowen over Almiron.
No, but I didn't say that. I said, would you spend 40, 50 or 30, 40 million on him?
What do you mean you didn't say that? You
30 or 40 million?
Your head and said no.
Any team takes him. Any team take him tomorrow for 30 or 40 million.
Well, all right. Well, we're not going to agree on everything, lads. But yeah, I think Bowen's at his level. Move on.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on. Apologies for that shout. Monday night football, again, a really intriguing game as well. Palace host Arsenal. Palace look really good in their opening game. Arsenal, obviously, we know their quality that they've got. Palace buoyed by the fact that Elise's just signed a new deal today, that Chelsea move not going ahead. But Laura, I know you were impressed with them at the weekend. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think Arsenal too strong, or maybe a bit of a Monday night special at Selhurst Park?
Well, Sky Bet weren't impressed with Crystal Palace because they're 5-1 at home to beat Arsenal. And when I think of that fixture, I think of Palace beating Arsenal for some reason. I don't know if they're a bogey team, but I definitely think of times in the past where Palace have done a job, under the lights at Selhurst Park, buoyed by the news that I think Michael Elise's just signed a new contract there. Did you just say that? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like Arsenal and I fancy them this season, but 5-1's far too strong. I think Arsenal will win the game, but I'll probably bet on Palace.
Yeah.
Which is the problem with gambling. But there we go.
Yeah, no. With regards to Michael Elise, I don't know if you boys agree with me. I'm pretty chuffed with the news that he's staying at Palace. Sort of sick and tired of the big clubs sort of hoarding players like that. Where I thought obviously he would do a good job for Chelsea, but I don't think he would start every game and he would find it tough basically to get into their starting 11 and make a real impact, as opposed to obviously signing that new contract at Palace. He's now going to he's one of the first names on the team sheet, and you can see he's progressing year on year. So I'm really excited to see how good he'll be at Palace. And then obviously, if he has another really good year this year, I don't know whether they've put another contract sort of release clause in his contract, but if they haven't, and he has a great year this year for Palace, you could see sort of him getting 70, 80, 90 million for him, because he's still only 21.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really glad he stayed at Palace. I like it when, I'm not saying Palace are a small team, but the lesser teams in the Premier League have good players. It makes the league better. And I think we've got a little bit of an issue this year with the gulf between the top and the bottom of the Prem. If you think about Man City and Arsenal and you think about Luton and Sheffield United, I'm not sure we've had a Premier League season. On paper, I know we haven't seen too much of any of them just yet, but on paper, that's probably as big a gulf as we've ever had. And to keep this league competitive and the best league in the world, which it is, we need teams like Palace keeping their players like Elise. And I think probably losing Zaha to Turkey maybe prompted Palace to think, right, we're going to keep hold of him. And now all of a sudden, Palace have got Elise, they've got Eze, they've got that midfield we spoke about the other day, and they're a really good outfit. So very pleased he stayed there. But I'm sure, like you said, I would have thought there would be a release clause in there somewhere. But at least at this moment in time, it sounds like he could have gone to Chelsea and he decided to stay at Palace, which I think is commendable.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad he stayed. I'm glad he's not joined Chelsea and sort of not been starting every week. I mean, he might have, but that's what tends to happen at Chelsea. Yeah, I fancy Palace as well. Actually, I think Monday night footballs tend to have some of those things. Laura, I think I looked at the head-to-head. So Arsenal did the double over them last year, but the season before that, Palace won 3-0 at home against Arsenal. Mateta, Ayew and Zaha scored. It was an 8 p.m. fixture, so it might have been a Monday night football. I think Conor Gallagher had a good game for Palace that night. So yeah, I'm going to back them to do something on Monday night football and get a win. I think we might have a weekend where City slip up and people are like, can Arsenal take advantage? I know it's so soon into the season, but then potentially them slip up as well. So yeah, that's my prediction for that. I will go 2-1 Palace.
Right, can I just say, Murph? You've predicted, I think, Newcastle to get something at City, Chelsea to lose at West Ham, and now Palace to beat Arsenal. So make sure you get that in an acca, because we don't want to be looking back next week and thinking, oh, we've missed out on a life changer.
Yeah, well, I've heard sort of 4s and 5-1 shouted about with some of those games. So I will be straight on to my bookmaker of choice to have a look at that. Boys, that's all we got time for this week. Been a pleasure as always. Hour absolutely flown by. We'll be back on Monday to review Premier League, EFL, Yeovil Town and other non-league results. But yeah, thanks very much, boys, and speak to you both soon.
Cheers.